Hello, everybody. Started me a little bit. I did not realize that we had fully started. Greetings, everybody. Happy Wednesday. I hope that everyone is having an awesome day. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Candice Cox, and I am a licensed clinical social worker. I am the founder of KHAOS Incorporated. My KHAOS is a little different. It starts with a K, and it stands for Keep Healing and Overcoming Struggles. Over the past 2 weeks, I have introduced you to the KHAOS mindset and the skills that we utilize, and have talked about different ways that you can use them in your life to prevent regular chaos, which is when you can't help acting out severely. So today is my last live of this month, and I wanted to focus on chaos parenting. I know that being a parent is it's a very hard job. I always say that before we check our kids, we have to make sure that we check ourselves, but that's easier said than done. I want to touch on the skills very quickly and then go into some toxic parenting that I'm sure we all have done some of these things, if not all of these things at some point in time. But I want to make sure that we bring them to light because one of my skills is raw. We have to realize the things that we're doing and admit how they are affecting our lives so that we can work through them. To get started, I want to refresh the KHAOS mindset. So the KHAOS mindset is to live a life of chaos. You must be willing to break free from your barriers, get raw with your issues, reset your mind, and be patient with you. So free stands for forgive, release, embrace, and elevate. We're going to touch on free as we talk about some of the toxic parenting strategies that are out there because oftentimes we have break free from the way that we were raised and from the patterns that we are accustomed to so that we can unlearn what we thought was right and relearn a new way of doing things. Next is raw. Like I stated earlier, raw is realize, admit, and work through. In parenting, you have to realize that you are not the expert on your kid. Your kid is the expert on themselves because they know themselves better than you will ever know them. So you have to realize that it's important to give your kids a voice and allow them to have it and admit that sometimes the things that you see inside of your kids are issues that you have inside of you that you haven't worked on and they annoy you because you see them inside your kids. So you try to fix them in your babies, but you get to admit that they are an issue inside of you and something that you need to fix inside of yourself. So realizing and admitting those things and being able to create solutions to work through them are very important. Next is reset. Reset is remember every situation encourages thought. Oh my goodness, we often have emotional responses. Our children and our family are the ones that get to see who we actually are. We can dial ourselves up and pretty ourselves up and shape ourselves however we need to be shaped for the outside world. But our children see us for who we actually are. They see us on our good days, our bad days, our questioning days. They see us on the days when we want to have quit being a parent type of days. And, they are always at the end of whatever we have going on because they are experiencing life with us. So we often have to remember that they are not tiny adults. They are actually children. So they are going to process and understand things at their level and not ours. And we can't hold our kids to unrealistic or hold our kids to adult expectations because they're not adults. So reset is something that we're going to talk about today a lot because we do have to make sure that we remember that every situation encourages thought. The last one is patient. Patient is pause and think. Inhale, exhale, now talk, or now tap out. And last week I added task because that's important because sometimes you can do the task. So now task, now finish your task. Or now tap out. If I feel like I don't have the ability to do this, I can tap out and come back later or tap out completely because it doesn't deserve my attention. Or if I feel that I have the language to talk this through or to talk about it and express myself without it becoming an emotional struggle, then I can talk. So again, the skills are free, forgive, release, embrace, elevate. Raw, realize, admit, work through. Reset, remember every situation encourages thought. And patient, pause and think. Inhale, exhale, now talk, now task, or now tap out. So I want to also introduce you again to the KHAOS kids so you can see who they are, as I'm going to discuss some types of behaviors. And each one of my kids has a diagnosis to help individuals understand the behaviors that their children have, whether it's a parent or it's an adult working with them, but also to help you see that you are also KHAOS kids. Everyone's a KHAOS kid. We all have some struggle that we have had to go through in our lives or that we are currently going through. And if you show up, you are a KHAOS kid because you have learned how to keep healing and overcoming struggles. So here are our KHAOS kids. This is them when they're little. And here they are when they get all grown up. And of course, you know, you can see that some of their statures change a little bit because our babies do change. And, you know, they go from being cute and cuddly to being big, and they have their own ideas. And so, you know, it's not as easy for us to control what happens with them when they get older because they do have their own minds. But we have to be mindful that it's not about control, it's about guidance. So let's talk about some of the toxic things that, you know, we do as parents that, you know, aren't intentional, you know, to our babies, but it happens. And we have to make sure that we are aware of those things so that we can continue to build on creating healthy environments and relationships with our babies opposed to toxic. So one thing is, you know, some of the toxic things that we do is, you know, as parents, some parents, they fail to create a secure and supportive environment for their child. You know, what we do is we often are moving and shaking. We're often moving and changing. You know, if we are as adults constantly going into different households, constantly moving into different houses, constantly switching different school districts, constantly switching jobs and things of that nature, that type of inconsistency, it doesn't work for us as adults, but we may have a better ability to be able to deal with that kind of stuff. But we have to reset. Remember, every situation encourages thought. Every time you move, every time you switch relationships, every time you start something different in your life, your child is starting something different as well. So you have to take a chance to take a time to acknowledge how this is going to affect your children just as well as how it's going to affect you. And if it's something that's painful and hard for you to deal with, take the time out to ask your kids what's going on and have that conversation. Most of the time, we are just moving and our kids are kind of shadows and going along with us. And we don't take the time to figure out exactly how our actions and how our behavior affects them. And it really does. You think about it. If you don't know what's going to happen with your next day, it sometimes makes you anxious and makes you, you know, not really sure or hesitant about the decisions that you make. Same thing happens with kids, but it comes out a little bit differently. Our kids may act out. Our kids ask a lot of questions. Our kids want to know what's going on. And that's because they need that security and they need that, you know, in their lives. And if we're not providing that for them, they're possibly going to seek that out in other places and seek it out in toxic places. Or what we're doing is, if we're inconsistent in our lives on a daily basis and we're constantly throwing our kids into environments that are unstable, where they don't feel secure and where they don't feel that, you know, they are okay, then we are creating that pattern for them when they grow up to constantly have lives where they're shifting and they're moving, but it's not in a positive way. So, you know, make sure that, you know, you as a parent do a self-check and ask yourself, am I creating a secure environment for my children? And if I'm not doing that, how can I do that? And if you don't know, have a conversation with your kids and ask your kids, you know, how do you feel? You know, do you feel that things are, you know, do you feel that mom's supporting you? Do you feel that, you know, you are secure? Ask those questions and let them know that it is important for them to have that because that is fair to them. Another thing, criticizing your kids' every move. I know that this is something that I had to work on because I am a kid. I'm a KHAOS kid, and I love my mom with everything in me, but my mom had me at 16, and she is a person that lives with post-traumatic stress disorder. So as a result of her having PTSD and having me as a teen, you know, she constantly criticized everything that I did. She wanted me to be perfect, and that was because she parented from fear. You know, it doesn't mean that, you know, that's what she wanted to do, but because she criticized me so much, it made me constantly question and criticize myself. So I had low self-esteem a lot throughout my life. Even though she encouraged me, she always gave me more negatives than positives, and she didn't realize that. It was the subtle things that she would do, questioning what I wore, questioning the decisions that I made, not giving me credit for the things that I was capable of doing, always, on me about, how I looked and how I spoke and different things like that. So it made me really self-conscious about myself and not have that security within me. So it took me a long time, like honestly, until I was about 30 for me to work through that. So, if you are constantly critical of your children, think about it. For every negative that you give, try to give two positives. Catch your kids doing good. Don't always catch them doing bad. As a parent, you do have to guide your children. As a parent, you do have to correct your children. But that doesn't have to be the base and the foundation of your relationship. Enjoy your babies. Think about the things that you needed when you were a child and give those things to your kids. But also think about the things that your kids need and have those conversations with your kids, because each child that you have is a different child. You may have one kid that needs you to be a go-go cheerleader all the time, and you may have one kid that is fine with small confirmations of things that they're doing, but you can't parent each child the same way. So you have to get to know your kids. But if anything, make sure that you're being gentle with them and make sure that you're speaking life into them and not always speaking negativity, because that's not fair to them in any way, form, or fashion. Honestly, it's going to make them not want to deal with you. Another thing, demanding all of their attention. Yes, your kids are your kids and you love your kids, but your kids don't have to spend all of their time with you. They are their own individuals and their own people, and you want them to be able to grow into who they are. You want them to be able to create, healthy relationships with people that aren't you. They can't be 13 years old and their mom is their BFF. I mean, yeah, it's cool for you to have a good relationship with your kid, but it's really not age appropriate for you to be their best friend. If you are taking all of your time and pouring everything into your child and not spending time with people that are age appropriate for you, you need a parent break. Just being real. It's okay for parents to take a time out. Give your kids the chance to build relationships. Give your kids the chance to, find hobbies of theirs. Your kids are your children, yes, but like I said before, they are their own individual people. And you want them to be able to grow into who they're supposed to be. And they can't grow into who they're supposed to be if they are constantly being your shadow, just to be honest with you. The next is making hurtful jokes. Yes, joking and having a good time is fun, but when it gets to a point that you're saying things that are degrading and demeaning and that are hurtful, that's not funny. And yes, if you have a kind of a sick type of sense of humor and a dry sense of humor, and you like things like that, that's fine for you, and that can be fine for you and your adult friends, but don't do that to your children. Give your children the chance to be who they are supposed to be. And like I said earlier, speak life into your kids. When you are saying hurtful jokes, you are still talking down to them. That is still emotionally abusive because you are criticizing them and you are saying things that are hurtful to them. That's not building their self-esteem. Making fat jokes and making jokes about crooked teeth and making jokes about, different things that are negative. That's bullying if you really think about it. And why is it okay for you to be a bully to your kids just for you to get a laugh? That's not okay in any way, form, or fashion. So, we may think that, joking and things like that with our kids is fun, which it really is, but make sure that it's appropriate and make sure that it's not negative. And if you are saying things that are hurtful to your kids and your kids are expressing that they don't think it's funny and that it's not okay, don't get mad at them because they don't like your jokes. Like, honestly, your kids teach you how to treat them. You teach people how to treat you. And if they're telling you that they don't like something, or if you can see that they don't like something and it's something that you can change and it's not going to harm you or them for you to change it, get raw. Realize it's an issue. Admit your role in it and come up with a different way of interacting with your babies and work through it. Next is blaming it all on the kid. Yes, we as adults, like I say all the time, we have to check ourselves before we check our children. Our kids are our children. They are products of the environments that we create for them. So if our kids do something, it's not for us to blame them for things that are affecting us. We have to guide them and we have to teach them. Every time your child makes a mistake, that's a learning opportunity for your child. Don't make it such a horrible thing. You have to also be patient Pause and think about what's going on inside of you and around you when something happens between you and your child, or when your child does something. If it takes you to 10 automatically, you need to inhale, exhale, and now tap out. Don't deal with it in the heat of the moment and blame your kid for all these things and spew everything that's going on in your life onto your babies, because that's not fair to them. If they're making a mistake and if they're doing something, it's for a reason. Either it's attention-seeking behavior. Find out what they need. Either they don't know and they've made the best choice that they could with what they have, which means you need to give them resources. Or they may have thought that it was okay, and you have to educate them on it not being okay. And sometimes they just do what they want to do, and you have to guide them and help them understand and process. Reset. Child, why did you do that? Let's remember every situation encourages thought. Teach your kids about consequences, both positive and negative. That's something that's important for us to do. And things that are affecting you in your life, if you're having problems in your relationship, having problems paying your bills, if you're having problems with you being happy, that is not your child's fault. Your child is responsible for being a kid. And anything that you are putting on your child that is not kid appropriate is unrealistic and it's unfair to them. Make sure that you are not holding your kids to adult expectations. Kids are not supposed to react to adult situations the way adults do. Why? Because they're kids. And our kids don't have the cognitive ability to process and work through things on an adult level. And shoot, if you think about it, sometimes as adults, we don't have the ability to work through stuff. So we can't knock our kids for things that we can't even do ourselves. That's just being honest. Another thing is being scary and frightening. This is something that I had to work on, because I used to be a in your face, pointing my finger, here you go, you better not do this, I told you, yeller, and threatening, and not just, that's the way I thought that I was supposed to parent. And one day I was yelling at my oldest daughter, and I looked in her face and I could see myself in her eyes. So then that meant that if I could see myself in her eyes, that meant that I must have been acting like my mom. And that wasn't okay, because that's not what I wanted to be. My mom was an excellent mom. She did the best that she could, but there are certain things that she did that I did not like. And to see that I was repeating that was not okay. It is good for you to be able to have structure and discipline. It is good for your children to understand rules and boundaries, but you don't have to scare the bejesus out of your child. You don't have to have your child operating from fear. You want to make sure that you have a good balance with the relationship between your child, because if you're just yelling and screaming and threatening, eventually your kid's going to learn how to block that out, and they're going to hear wong, 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 wong when you're talking, and you're not going to get through them at all. Sometimes it's not about what you say, it is about how you say it. And it doesn't matter if your child is a kid. You still want to be able to respect your kids, and you want them to be able to hear you. So, think about it. It's not about being scary and frightening. It's about having an open line of communication and creating a relationship and a platform where you are able to guide your kids. Yes, your kids are going to have those moments where you do want to just run away, because you're like, I can't handle this and I can't deal with this. But instead of you taking that out on your child, figure out what's going on inside of you and why you're not centered. Because, it may be some things that are inside of you from your past and from your childhood that are creeping into this situation now. It's called transference of emotion. And you have to be mindful of that. So realizing, admitting, and working through is very important in this stage of how do I discipline my children. Another thing is, thinking only about yourself. Again, when you become a parent, it's not about you. Yes, you had this beautiful baby, you went through this pregnancy, yes, you saw the ultrasounds, you did everything you were supposed to do, you buy these kids everything that they need or that they want, and you're making sure that everything is taken care of for them. But guess what? Your children were not knocking on your ovaries asking to be born, or your children were not saying, yeah, Dad, I want to be created. You have to think about that. Your children are here because you made the choice for them to be here. Positive or negative experience, they are here. So what you have to do is make sure that, like I told you, you are not the expert on your kids. Your kids are the expert on themselves. So take the time out to do things that are kid appropriate. Ask them what they want to do. Ask them what they want to be when they grow up. Ask them what they're thinking about. Ask them what's going on with them. Because if you're doing that, you are opening the lines of communication and you are learning about your child. Again, it's not about you. It's not. You are an adult and your childhood is over. So now it's time for you to invest into your child and your children. It's time for you to plant those seeds and nurture those seeds and grow those seeds. And so you have to make sure that you're focusing on them and what's best for them. And don't make your choices based on your adult expectations. Think about how your actions and your choices affect your children. Again, like I said, think about your kids' needs. Now, wanting to fulfill your dreams through your kids. This happens so much. You get those moms that wanted to be cheerleaders or those moms that wanted to go into certain career paths. Or you get those dads that, I wanted to be a football star and I didn't make it, so my kid has to play football. That's not fair. Don't live your dreams to your kids. Yes, you do have dreams for your kids. Yes, you do want your kids to be the best that they can be. But make sure that you are allowing your kids to develop their natural things. Everyone has things that are inside of them that, nobody else can give to the world because they're special. And you want to figure out what's special about your kid and have your child figure out what's special about them so that they can nurture that and they can grow that. We're not in the business of creating clones. Everybody is an individual. So you can't raise all your kids the same, and you can't raise your kids based off of who you want to be. You have to make sure that you're investing in who they are. And oftentimes you have to reset. Remember, every situation encourages thought. You have to ask yourself, am I doing this for me or am I doing this for them? And it should be that you're doing this for them. If they're not getting a benefit from it and you're just getting something out of it, something's totally wrong. That's not a dream for your child. That's a dream for you. And you need to live your own dreams and allow them to live theirs. Now, another thing is controlling the kid with money or guilt. That's abuse. Like, being honest, you know what I mean? Yeah, sometimes we say, do your chores, I'll pay you this. Or it says, different things like that. But guilting your kid because, you want something to go your way, that's not fair, because that's playing mind games with your kids and that's playing on their emotions. And, always bribing your kids with money. Yeah, every once in a while you do say, do your chores and I'll give you this, or, you do this and then I'll let you go there. That's a negotiation and bargaining tool. But if that's all you have to give, you're teaching your kids that they are supposed to look for a reward for doing something, and sometimes for doing the right thing. And you don't want to do that. You want to embed in your kids that you do the right thing even when nobody else is looking, and make good choices just because that's the right thing to do. Not make good choices because you feel like you're going to get money for this, or not make good choices because, you think I'm going to make you feel bad. Kids are who they are, and everybody is going to make mistakes. Don't guilt your kids. Don't guilt your kids because they don't want to spend time with you. Don't guilt your kids because, they don't want to do the things that you want them to do. Because you have to understand that, like I said, they are their own people. So learn about them and don't make them feel bad for who they are. Next is ignoring boundaries. Now, this was a biggie because my mother told me that, there was no such thing as privacy in her house. So when I became a teenager and I used to write in my journal, my mom used to go through my journals and she used to, come back and throw those things at me. And, that would be the most hurtful thing in the world because those are my thoughts. I wasn't up to nothing crazy. I hadn't given her any reason to think that I was doing anything I wasn't supposed to do. But because of the things that she went through in her life, she thought that once I got the age that she was when she got pregnant with me, that I was going to doing the same things. This goes back to breaking free. As a parent, you have to forgive yourself for the decisions and things that you made when you were a kid. And you have to release yourself for not knowing. I mean, you did the best you could with what you had. And embrace your past, embrace your current, and embrace your future with love and compassion. And at that point, you can elevate to a higher level of living. If you don't break free from the mistakes or the things that you categorize as mistakes in your past, then you are going to transfer those things over to your kids, which means that you are going to be extra paranoid. You are going to parent from fear. And that's not fair to your kids. Allow your kids to have their own experiences. Don't make them live through your trauma. And that's just being honest. And as a parent, I have to say, I've been there. Now when your kids start getting older, you are, wanting to know more things. You are going to ask more questions and things like that. Before you invade your kids' boundaries and before you invade your kids' privacy, sometimes yes, that is needed because you do want to know what's going on if something's not, safe, but at the same time, before you get to that point, give your kids a chance, build their relationship. That is important for you to do. Now, something else that's important and that I didn't touch on, but I think that's important for us to touch on is, as a parent, go back and look over your life. Sometimes we are so busy moving forward that we don't take the chance to look back to see how far we've come. Look at the way that you were parented and recognize that everything wasn't bad. Even if you had a bad experience with your parents, realize that everything wasn't bad. There was some good. So go back and look at the good, look at the bad, take the assets, take the liabilities, and look at where you want to be as a parent and start taking out those things that your parents did embed in you and start building on those things. But then also take the chance to look back and say, okay, you know what? I want to take this and I want to give this to my kids, but I didn't like that. So let me change that, because you can. You are your parents' child, but you do not have to be your parents' choices. Remember that. You do not have to be the parent that your parent was to you. Remember that. Just like I said, your kids are their own people. You're your own person too. And you have everything that you need inside of you to be an amazing parent and to be an amazing person. You have everything in you that you need to keep healing and overcoming struggles. But you have to be willing to do the work. Our kids are a reflection of who we are. And so when we focus on nothing but negativity inside of our kids, it says more about us than it will ever say about them. Make sure, just as a parent, that you are being aware of the way that you are working and dealing with your children. Sometimes we get so caught up in our own lives that we are there, but we're not present in the presence of our children. And so we have to make sure that we are present in the presence of our babies. We have to make sure that we are in tune. We have to make sure that, I'm guilty of this, putting the phone down, turning the TV off, getting rid of the technology, and actually learning who your kids are. Good, bad, and ugly. Everybody goes through experiences and changes in their lives, but if your child is acting out, if your child is doing some things that you do not agree with, if your child is having, behavioral issues in any way, form, or fashion, whether it be through a diagnosis or not, there is a root and there is a reason. Find out what the root and the reason is. We have to stop putting Band-Aids on gaping wounds. We have to stop putting Band-Aids on behaviors and not actually get into the root of why those things are happening. And if you are having a hard time with parenting, that means that you have to work on you. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nobody is perfect. Nobody. Understand that we all have struggles. So please don't be ashamed of the struggles that you have as a parent, because I promise you, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I have a nonprofit organization. I am a therapist, and I have those quit your job as a parent type of days. It's normal, but you need to make sure that you have a support system that supports you and that helps you remember that it's okay for you to make mistakes, that you're not going to be perfect. But as long as you are attentive and as long as you are constantly resetting, remembering every situation in Kurt's thought, and as long as you are being patient with yourself and with your kids, the relationship that you build will be the relationship that you all create together. It's not a one-sided thing. So make sure that you are investing in your babies. Make sure that you are not blaming your babies for you not being happy. Make sure that you're not putting your kids in charge of their own happiness as children, because they need you to teach them how to be self-sufficient and how to create that happiness on their own. Make sure that you're not taking out the experiences that you had as a child on your kids now. It's not fair for you to transfer those emotions and those behaviors. And make sure that you are taking care of you. Positive self-care is very important. Yes, you are a mom. Yes, you are a dad. But yeah, it is a full-time job, but it is okay for you to take a break sometime and take care of you. If you guys have any questions or anything, please feel free to reach out to me on Facebook. Our page is KHAOS Inc. That's KHAOS. If you guys want to know more information about KHAOS, please visit our website at www.KHAOSINC.org. And if you have any questions that you want me to talk about, or any topics or things you may want me to talk about later in the future, please let me know, and I'll make sure that I get that information out here to you. You have an amazing day. And remember, life happens, but that doesn't mean it has to stop. We all have the ability to keep healing and overcoming struggles. You got this. Bye, everybody.